In the dust and smoke of early World War II, one tank would quietly rise from a support role to become the backbone of Germany's armored force. It wasn't the sleek Panther or the terrifying Tiger that carried the war on its shoulders, no, it was the Panzer IV. At first glance, it doesn't scream for attention. Squared armor plates, a modest turret, and a short-barreled 75mm gun. But this tank, designed before the war even began, would go on to serve longer than any other German tank and adapt to nearly every battlefield condition the war could throw at it. When Hitler came to power in 1933, Germany was still shackled by the Treaty of Versailles. But the Nazis quietly ignored its restrictions and began rearming. Among their early designs was the Panzer IV. Initially not intended as the main battle tank. That role belonged to the lighter Panzer III, which would engage enemy armor. The Panzer IV's job was to support infantry and take out bunkers and machine gun nests. The man behind its design was Krupp engineer Heinrich Niepkamp, who focused on simplicity, adaptability, and ease of production. The earliest version rolled off the lines in 1937. Thinly armored and lightly armed, it wasn't built for slugfests against enemy tanks. But as Germany launched its lightning-fast Blitzkrieg campaigns, the Panzer IV's strengths became obvious. During the invasions of Poland in 1939 and France in 1940, the Panzer IV worked alongside other tanks to break through enemy lines, maneuver around defenses, and support infantry. It could cross rivers, navigate muddy fields, and use its low-velocity gun to blast enemy positions with high-explosive rounds. Still, it had problems. Armor no thicker than a few centimeters, no radio on some early models, and if it faced a modern tank like the French Char B1 or British Matilda, it was badly outmatched. But what the Panzer IV lacked in strength, it made up for in adaptability. By 1941, as Hitler's armies surged into the Soviet Union during Operation Barbarossa, the Panzer IV was about to face a brutal test. The Soviets had introduced the T-34, a fast, well-armored tank with a powerful 76mm gun and sloped armor. German crews were stunned. Their shells bounced harmlessly off the T-34's skin, while Soviet rounds punched clean through the Panzer IV. Germany had a choice: design a completely new tank from scratch, or improve what they already had. And they chose the latter. What followed was a remarkable transformation. The Panzer IV was up-armored, re-engined, and, most critically, rearmed with a longer 75mm high-velocity gun. The new Panzer IV could now knock out T-34s and Shermans at range. With side skirts added to defend against anti-tank rifles, and Zimmerit paste applied to resist magnetic mines, the Panzer IV evolved into a true frontline predator. By mid-war, it was no longer a support vehicle, it had become the main battle tank of the German army. In deserts of North Africa, in forests of the Ardennes, and in the frozen hell of Stalingrad, the Panzer IV fought everywhere. But as the war dragged on, the Panzer IV's design began to hit its limits. The new Allied tanks were getting tougher, and the Panzer IV was aging fast. And yet, it continued to fight. By 1943, the Panzer IV had become the workhorse of the German army. Over 9,000 had already been built, more than any other German tank. It had been improved, upgraded, and reinforced. But the war was changing faster than any one machine could keep up. On the Eastern Front, the Red Army was pushing west with waves of T-34s, new IS-2 heavy tanks, and massed artillery. In the west, American Shermans rolled ashore in North Africa and Sicily, soon to come ashore in France. The Panzer IV was now surrounded on every front. But it refused to fade quietly. The German High Command knew the tank's days as a cutting-edge machine were numbered. New designs like the Panther and Tiger were intended to take over the heavy fighting. But they were expensive, complex, and plagued by reliability problems. The Panzer IV, by contrast, was proven, affordable, and relatively easy to repair in the field. So Germany doubled down. The newer variants added thicker armor, wider tracks, and a simplified design that allowed for mass production. Skirt armor was added to the sides and turret to defend against shape-charge weapons and anti-tank rifles. The long 75mm gun remained deadly, capable of punching through most Allied medium tanks with ease. On the Western Front, the Panzer IV was still dangerous. In Normandy, it waited in ambush among the hedgerows. From concealed positions, its gun could tear through advancing Shermans before fading back into the terrain. Many Allied tank crews quickly learned. If you see a Panzer IV, too late, you're not getting a second chance. But while the gun could still kill, the armor was falling behind. Allied air superiority meant German tanks were constantly hunted from above. Rockets, bombs, and strafing runs tore into columns before they could even reach the battlefield. And on the ground, the Shermans came in numbers the panzer divisions couldn't match. For every Panzer IV, there were often 5 or more Shermans rolling in. On the Eastern Front, the situation was even worse. The Soviets had adapted and outproduced. Thousands of T-34s, Su-85s, and IS-series tanks stormed across the plains, backed by endless infantry and artillery. For every Panzer IV destroyed, there were fewer resources to replace it. Still, the crews fought on. In bitter city fights like Warsaw and Budapest, the Panzer IV's smaller size gave it an edge in close quarters. It could maneuver through rubble-strewn streets better than the massive Tiger tanks. And with experienced gunners, it could still destroy enemy armor at deadly range. But by 1945, the writing was on the wall. The final version was a stripped-down shadow of its former self. Lacking an electric turret motor, relying on hand cranking, with thinner armor in places to save materials. It was no longer evolving, it was surviving. And even then, it remained in the fight. In the ruins of Berlin, as Soviet tanks closed in, a few battered Panzer IVs still roamed the streets, firing their last shells. For some German soldiers, the sight of one rumbling forward meant that all hope wasn't yet lost. After the war, many surviving Panzer IVs were captured, scrapped, or exported. Some went to Syria, where they fought again decades later in the Middle East. An eerie echo of a bygone war. The Panzer IV never had the mythic reputation of the Tiger or the sleek profile of the Panther. But no other German tank fought as long, as hard, in as many places, or in as many roles. It wasn't the most powerful, but it was the most important. It was the backbone of the German army.